The saying is, you're born on third base and you think you hit a triple. That's the complete saying. It's like she knew she was born on third base.
She was absolutely born on third base, but in many ways, and I know, the word privilege is much discussed and bandied around these days.
Yeah.
In a strange way, her getting from third base to home was as hard as us getting around all four bases.
You think you know Liza Minnelli, but you don't. Behind the tabloid headlines, there's a person, the product of a tumultuous marriage, someone who had to deal with the early and tragic death of their mother, a performer who had to deal with the expectations of being the child of one of the most legendary performers of Hollywood's golden age. In today's climate, where nepotism and privilege draw such intense scrutiny, it can be hard to remember that expectation can also be a crushing weight. But Liza survived it all. In Liza, a truly terrific, absolutely true story, filmmaker Bruce David Klein pulls back the curtain and allows Liza's friends to reveal how she was able to use a coterie of collaborators and mentors to reach the highest peaks of stardom, even as her personal life didn't always match that success. Join us as we welcome Bruce David Klein to Inside the Arthouse, starting now.
Hey, everybody. My name is Greg Lemley.
And I'm Raphael Sparge.
We're here today inside the Art House with director Bruce David Klein to talk about his new documentary, his new film, Liza, a truly terrific, absolutely true movie. Or film. Is it an absolutely true film?
Absolutely true story.
Story! There it is.
All right.
I got most of it.
Yeah.
It was easier than my last film was Best Worst Thing That Ever Could Have Happened. So that was
How do you come up with your titles?
Yeah.
We need to know this.
Well, we did one 2 years ago called Icon, The
Yes.
Restless Billionaire. So sometimes we do shorter ones. So.
Did she come up with the title herself?
No.
Is that a way
it
she describes
is-
her life or something like that? I was curious.
No, it's actually the introduction written for her by Fred Ebb to her song Ring Them Bells. And
wow.
she talks about, I'm going to tell you a truly terrific, absolutely true story. And if you know Liza and dive into her world, first of all, the word like absolutely and terrific and whatever, it's totally her. I mean, it's just, it rings like her. So Fred Ebb was a genius to know that Liza, a truly terrific, absolutely true story just captured her.
We were talking briefly before we started. I've always loved Liza. I've always loved the way in which, the emotional way in which she connects with us as an audience. I mean, she's so polished, of course, but there's also something so vulnerable and real and genuine and just hits your heart. And I think perhaps why everyone also has such an emotional sort of response to her. But when I heard that you'd made this move, I was like, we need a movie about Liza. This is an incredible thing. What a great idea to actually sort of do this. But then in watching it, of course, not knowing all of the details that you sort of unearthed, in addition, her mentors, but the footage that you found, the unbelievable footage that you found of her tours, is just, it's everything. It really gives such color, and there's such incredible sort of portraits of her that you get, as she's traveling around. So could you explain that part, I guess, or any part of that question, I guess? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, certainly back then, today we're kind of used to reality, verite footage, following people, stars on the road, behind the scenes, very, very normal. And of course, today, stars are doing it themselves, right, through Instagram and TikTok. But back then, to have a major superstar, the it girl of the moment, to allow cameras to film her every single move on tour, including her. It didn't make the movie, but one of my favorite moments, just her washing her hair, Liza washing her own hair in the sink. And we couldn't put it in, but it just didn't fit in. We kept getting cut. But it was so remarkable to see that from the mid 70s. and to really connect with this star who, again, as we mentioned in the film, several people, she was brought up by her MGM parents, and she was taught in the MGM way, where you never tell anybody what you're thinking. You never show the real story. Everything is wonderful. Everything is beautiful. And the fact that she allowed this crew to show things that are, she's a real person. She's vulnerable, and she doesn't get angry a ton, but she gets a little miffed sometimes. But the rehearsal and the practice, that's really what made us want to really, really more than anything do this film. When we first started talking to her management team, and we were kind of feeling each other out. We had just come off a film we did for HBO on the billionaire corporate raider Carl Icahn. So it wasn't like, although we had done the Merrily We Roll Along film before, so we had some Broadway cred, if you will. But it was just incredible when they said, I don't know, could Liza just found about 25 or 30 hours of footage in her closet. Like, could you use this?
Unbelievable.
And of course, we played very, very, at the beginning before, they signed on, we were very cool and collected. We said, well, let's take a look at it first and that kind of thing. So we got the footage in, we pressed play, and our jaws just dropped for a couple of reasons. One is to see someone, you forget Liza because she's had such a long career.
Yes.
You forgot her at her height. The It Girl had just won the Oscar, had just won the Emmy, was about to win the Tony and the Grammy coming up. I mean, she was just exploding internationally all over the place. And to see her at that height, at her height like that, so vulnerable, so real. And there was one moment I talk about often where you see her dealing with the press, and this French journalist who, thank God, shall live in infamy for the rest of his life, looked her in the eye and said, Liza, why do people think that you're ugly? And
that moment.
And she's sitting there with the eyelashes. She looks gorgeous, beyond gorgeous. She is explosive in her, in her life force, in her energy, in her youth. She's 25, 26. And to hear that, and then there's like a pregnant pause, and then the way she answers, which is very MGM, which is, well, it depends upon what you mean about ugly. And I just go on stage and just unflappable.
Yeah.
And you realize that's so unbelievably telling about who she is, that she just was unflappable at the age of 25, 26 when somebody asked her that outrageous question.
She didn't even flinch. She literally just like, she just handled it. She ninja'd it in such an amazing way in that moment. And of course, you say that was sort of part of the inspiration for really kind of launching kind of the point of view on this?
Well, when we saw that, it was very much, wow, we need to really get the vibe of what was going on in the 70s. How was she looked upon? How was she thought of? Because there was a lot of questions about her. The expectations were so high. Would she ever sing as well as her mother? Would she dance as well as her mother? Does she have movie star looks? All of these questions were out there, even though she had just, won Oscar for Cabaret and won Emmy for Liza with a Z, and she was on the cover of every magazine. And I think the only thing equivalent to it today would be, Taylor Swift in terms of that. And people don't realize that in 1972, to be on the cover of Newsweek and Time the same week.
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
Okay,
Never.
It was like the president of the United States. I mean, the Pope, and that was, you know, jaw dropping. So that question and the way she answered it, we knew there was a larger story there about how people perceived her, how she had a hard time at the beginning dealing with her legacy. The legacy that she was given by her father and mother. So that's when it started opening up. And, you know, there was never a question, is there a film here?
Right,
Okay?
right.
We could have made 75 different films about Liza Minnelli. And I'm not joking. I can't say that about any subject we've ever done. We could have done a film just on Liza and Halston 1 month in Studio 54. That's absolute film, you know, with tension and drama and comedy and excitement and lots of visuals. But we ended up going down this route because, as I often say, you know, we didn't go in with a preconceived notion. We let the material speak to us. And that, I think, is what you have to do when you do something like this.
So you approached her with the idea of doing the film, or her people and whatever. So what was that like, and how long did that take really to get to the point of approval?
Sure. There was a bit of back and forth. I think as soon as they heard our reaction to the 70s footage, this tour footage, and how we were going to use that kind of as a corrective, as a reminder. It's like, yeah, we've seen Liza in later years in Arthur, and we've seen her touring with Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. We've seen her on Sex and the City. We've seen her on Arrested Development. But do you really remember in that magical time in the early to mid 70s when she was just, you know, bigger than life? Right. And I think when I first started pitching this idea of how Liza became Liza, that is really when it kind of all clicked. And again, there was some lead up to this where I mean, basically, you know, not to go into too deep a story, but I know we have a little bit of time, so I will. You know, I was too young to see Cabaret, much too young, but I remember seeing the poster, and I remember thinking, that's a really naughty poster. I really want to see that movie. I had no idea what it was about.
Yeah.
But
I know I'm not allowed to see it.
But I know I'm not allowed to see it. Back then, rated R meant like restricted.
Right.
You cannot go.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So no way. So didn't see it then. Then in 1980, I was a little older. I was able to go in and see Arthur. And I remember saying, my God, what an amazing comedic actress. She is funny as shit.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh my God, that was who was on the poster in Cabaret. So I kind of went back and did a deep dive into Cabaret and to Stella Cuckoo. And I said, wow, she's really talented. Then put a pin in that, cut to 2008. I'm kind of what's called, or December 2007, or maybe December 2008. I'm kind of a completist in terms of Broadway. It's an obsession. I have to see the show with the originator of the role. So you have to see, you know, Carol Channing and Hello Dolly, and you have, you know, et cetera.
Yeah.
So when I heard that Liza in 2008 was bringing back this show called Liza's at the Palace, which was, you know, where her mother played famously, and she was going to be on Broadway for, you know, a couple of months, I said, oh my God, I have to see this.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I went in, and there was a big question at that time. Liza had just gone through some medical issues. There was, you know, a really wild marriage that she had been through. There was a question like, could she still sing? Could she still dance? And then kind of there was a drum roll, and literally the curtain comes up. She starts walking out. Spotlight hits her, and she does one of the, I'm not going to do a Liza move, but she does one of the patented Liza move.
Yeah.
And the reaction in the audience, I have been, just like I'm sure you guys have, to all the big concerts, whether it's Stones or Bowie, whatever. I have never seen an audience lose its mind. There were grown men and women not applauding, not standing ovation, but standing on the Broadway seats. Liza, we love you, crying. Wow. Oh my God, Liza, we love you. And I said, oh my God, there's like a real something here that I don't completely understand in terms of this goes deep. And then we keep lists of ideas for films and celebrities and well-known people that we want to reach out to. And our co-producer, Dana Craig, who's a huge Liza fan, had put her on the list. And we kept talking about it and then moving on and talking about it. And then we came back. And then eventually when we connected with the team, it went very fast because they realized how committed we were, and that this idea of how Liza became Liza was something that would kind of interest her.
That's a sort of a really interesting and unique sort of approach to sort of thinking about a megastar in a way.
You're gonna have to unpack that a little bit because I mean, yes, obviously there were certain advantages, but there's a lot to live up to there, and a lot of people don't.
They don't.
Can't. In some respects,
they get crushed by that. Yeah.
Oh, I would say actually, I would argue most do. Most get crushed. Child stars. I mean, we don't need to go through
stars of children.
And children of stars, it is brutal. And one of the things I think that when you approach a project like this, the first thing you want to do is avoid the easy, lazy, comfortable thing. And the easy, lazy, comfortable thing is always, a chronological cradle to grave, as they say, documentary which ultimately comes down to, well, Liza did this, and then she did this movie.
Right, it was just a recounting.
She did that song, and then she was famous. And honestly, I get bored by them. I think the audience gets bored by them. The audience these days is so much more jaded and sophisticated about coming up with interesting ways to tell people's stories. So in this case, again, not going in with a preconceived notion, we let the material speak to us. And what happened really interestingly is when we went through the thousands of hours, I mean, one of the benefits of Liza, which was also the challenge, is that rarely in that era was somebody more photographed, more interviewed. So there was zillions of hours of stuff. And it was really, really interesting to see, her say on a couple of occasions, she's talking about, Halston. Oh, he invented me. And then it's like John Kander and Fred Ebb. Oh, they invented me. And we kept hearing that, and we kind of just filed it in the back. And then what happened was when we sat down with Liza for the first time and we interviewed her, I think one of the first questions I asked was, you had such a special relationship with Halston. Oh, he invented me. Like that was the first thing she said practically. And as it came out, when we started to talk to friends of hers, she is very unusual, incredibly humble in the fact that she credits the fact that she has a good eye, yes, but and she has raw talent, of course, but she was able to find these friends and mentors who, and amazingly, all five were geniuses.
Right. Kay Thompson. I mean, unbelievable.
Just Kay Thompson, Bob Fosse. I mean, Halston. These were incredible geniuses, and she credits them with making her who she is. And that spoke to us so loudly that at one point we just said, this is what the movie's about.
Yeah, again, that's what I found so sort of exciting. I mean, we've all seen so many biopics, but what I found so exciting is how you really, we watched her become we watched her become Liza, and just as you're saying, I mean, and you know, Charles Aznavour, and again, incredible footage there, and incredible concert footage that you have. I mean, and then the interactions, you know, with her and Halstead, and then, you know, those. The footage of Kay Thompson and her in the back of her limousine,
the car. Yeah, that was
where
amazing.
she says, "I'm feeling nervous," and Kay Thompson, wow, again, it really is a unique point of view in terms of being able to tell a story about someone and how they reach the heights. I really applaud you for that.
And thank you. How great was it that one of her key mentors was Kay Thompson, one of the most eccentric, quirky, brilliant, over the top. I mean, there are things, you know, kind of buried in the film that, you know, obviously I know, but we couldn't raise the level, whatever. But there's this one moment they're saying goodbye, and everyone's like, to her crew, Kate's saying goodbye to Liza and her crew as they go on to Copenhagen, and she's staying in Paris or whatever it is. And she just says, Kate just says, everyone's like tired, and everyone's like, oh my God, when are we going to rest? Whatever. Kay says, we'll wake up later, you know? And it's just, it's like, where does she get this stuff? Or, you know, famously talking about her looks, saying that she has a new face made with old material.
Yeah.
I mean, she just rolls this stuff out. And when you watch her, like in the back of a limo, whatever, the wisdom, and you see, and that's the thing I think in some ways I'm most proud of, that you not only see, oh, Aznavour, you know, influenced her, and we've seen them before, we know them together, but hopefully you appreciate how exactly, compared to the other mentors in her life, how he changed her life, because he believed in a certain interpretive style of performance that, you know, he used in his career, and she got that from him. And Kay, you know, she had this worldview that is quirky, that is, you know, and Liza already had that, but Kay brought that out and made Liza feel very comfortable to be her quirky self, because Judy was also very quirky. From everything, you know, everything public, and also things that I've heard, you know, during the interviews and from Liza, Judy was very, very, very funny and surprising. Lorna and Liza tell the story when they're making, Judy's making meatballs. And then, you know, the kids are, I don't know, they're like bored or whatever it is. And Judy's like, oh, no problem. She takes out a golf club and starts using the meatballs as a golf ball, and hitting them around the house. I mean, that's how they grew up. And so, and of course, who was a muse for Judy Garland? Kay Thompson.
Right.
So, and Kay Thompson was Liza's godmother. So the fact that she already had this kind of DNA, I think Liza's a really interesting, almost a scientific experiment and analysis of nature versus nurture. It's like what percent?
Yes.
Clearly, she had the explosive raw talent,
the stuff,
okay,
right.
in performance. She had the stuff, but then she also, you know, the third person to ever hold her was Frank Sinatra, you know, so she also, and she was, you know, taught tap dancing by, Gene Kelly. So she also had that. So, but it was a tough road for her. And I think that was one thing that was very interesting.
Yeah. You had that wonderful interview with Mia Farrow where she talks about how Frank said, yeah, she's good, but not everything is a Star Spangled Banner. And how, again, how his perception of her talent, but that she needed to, shape it, as you say, through Kay Thompson or, through Charles Aznavour, being able to find a way to
be able to hear criticism and then respond and not reject it, but to respond to it. And that's something that we can all really learn from. And that's what's so brilliant about, I mean, like, you can make a documentary that's for fans, and that's fine. But you can also make a documentary that shows us somebody that allows us to learn, how to become a better person, how to become more, it's not successful necessarily, but really to take what our talents are and bring them out in a different way. And I think the film is for more than just fans. That's I think what I want to get across.
That's a great point.
With that point,
That's an interesting point, and it's an interesting point because to me, the big theme that emerged from the film was this idea of the power of mentors to change our lives, showing, being vulnerable to admitting that they need help, admitting that this person can help them. I think Liza is a case in point of the power of mentors to truly and dramatically transform our lives. And I think, hopefully you go out of the theater and say, that person who I was going to have a drink with or whatever, and I kind of blew off, maybe they could, teach me something. And it's rare. It's a rare talent. And especially from where she came, having one of the greatest directors who ever lived as her father, having one of the greatest superstar performers who ever lived as her mother, that's a hard thing to say, I need help.
Yeah, I mean, but that goes to the heart of kind of what we love about her, right? It's her vulnerability and her her humanity. I mean, I was also so struck, and I didn't know this, that she had come out and was one of the first people to talk about her addiction, or even that, to be able to sort of publicly speak about addiction at a time when that was shocking, particularly from such a big star, but that was sort of something that would be, whispered. I mean, every week we have someone else obviously now going to treatment, but at the time, she was willing to put herself out there. And again, that's incredible. Again, it just shows such humanity.
She was one of the first stars to be out there and say, yeah, I'm going to Betty Ford. And Betty Ford was obviously the first. And Liza was, right on her heels. In fact, that we have a letter in the film from Betty Ford saying, Liza, I'm so proud of you. You're going to do it. You can keep going. And I think Liza, she has this kind of perfectionist side of her when it comes to work, where she is an obsessive rehearser and she's prepared and practiced, and she has a very high standard. I assume she learned that from her parents. And I think she looked at the challenges in her life, the addiction and some other issues, as a roll up your sleeves moment of, I have a problem. I got to get this fixed. I have nothing to be ashamed of, and maybe I could help others. I think she also did that, obviously in a different way, being one of the first with Elizabeth Taylor to promote AIDS causes and AIDS charities. She was out there from the very beginning, in front of the UN and even before, out there in front. So I think when, she has a really nice aspect of her personality. And I think you grow to love her most, at least I did, when you start talking to her friends. Not family, but just her friends, like Alan and Arlene Lazar.
Yeah.
Alan was like a dentist from Brooklyn, and they connected at the lanes one night.
I actually love that they were in the film, because it's like, here's Ben Vereen and here's Mia Farrow, and they're and I was like looking at this couple, and I'm saying, what have I seen them in?
They have the most. Unfortunately, Alan has passed since the film, but they had the most magical relationship where it was so open. They had this thing, I forgot exactly what they called it, but it was like kitchen table, meaning that the three of them, when Liza or Alan or Arlene wanted to kind of vent their spleen and be vulnerable and tell everything, they would like go to the kitchen table, and it was just known nobody will say anything. And Liza had all these friends that would all say the same thing, which is, Well, let me tell you the story when Liza dropped everything, stopped her tour to come because my kid was in the hospital. Dozens of stories like that. And that's why she has so many godchildren. And that's why we really did not hear any bad things about her from anybody. Maybe just one or two random things, but everybody that we spoke to, both on and off camera, were, she's just really $1 million gold person, and you sense that with her. We say in the film, and one of the experiences of being around Liza that I found fascinating was she really, you're meeting this legend, and the main dominant vibe in the room is she wants you to like her. It's like, your attitude is, Liza, it's like, relax. I love you. You're amazing. You're talented. You are an Oscar winner, an Emmy winner. You're the best. Okay. But she wants you to love her. She wants you to be her friend. And I think, it's mentioned in the films that almost everybody who meets Liza, even for 5 minutes, they come away thinking that she's just like their best friend. And, she does these little things. Like there was one moment at the end of shooting one day where, the crew was packed out. We were walking out and we were in her house, and she said to somebody, can you tell Bruce to come in? I said, okay. So I go in to her bedroom. She's sitting on the edge of the bed. And I said, we had a great day. What's happening? And she reaches up, she takes my hand, and she starts petting it. And she looks up at me with those, famous saucer eyes.
Yeah.
And she looks up at me and she said, Bruce, don't put in anything phony in this film. Don't make me look like a phony. And she's looking at me and like, you're just collapsing, with just the vulnerability and the honesty that she had. And also in a tribute to her, most films that we do on celebrities or well-known people, it's the opposite. It's, I want total control. Don't put in anything that makes me look bad. She's the opposite. As long as it's real and it's really me, I'm comfortable in my own skin.
Well, that's what you do at the very beginning.
Rare.
At the very beginning of the film, which is kind of a wonderful way in, is that you obviously have that first interview with her, and she's clearly nervous, but she's tough with you, and she's do this and move the camera over there. No, that's not right. Higher, and she's.
But why is she nervous? She's Liza fucking Minnelli. Why is she nervous?
Yeah,
that's so interesting, and
is.
She does say it in the film, as you say. Thank you for showing this to me. When we show her an old clip, I said, why are you thanking me? Because it's relaxing me. Why do you need to be relaxed? Because I'm nervous and I'm relaxed. And it's just the fact of Liza Minnelli being nervous because there's a camera there. I mean, did you see the film? You saw like she was 24, 25 years old, surrounded by 100 cameramen and journalists. And she was like that at the age of 12, at the age of 15. She was at the Palladium with her mother. I mean, she was just incredible. Interesting aspect of her personality.
I'm thinking, and it's not in the film, and I'm wondering if it conscious decision or what, but to talk about the relationship with the LGBTQ community, I mean, her mom dies days before or the day of the Stonewall,
sure.
riots, and then, her connection, Studio 54 and other things, and then through the AIDS crisis. You want to talk about that a little bit, or?
Sure. No.
And it's a side note, I guess, but I think it's one worth talking about.
No, it's actually not. I mean, it's not a side note. I mean, we talked about that a lot, and we knew, what she meant to that community. We got it, and we had edited several sequences that were going to address it, as well as other sequences that were going to address other things. And what happens is, I have a rule: don't make the thing longer than 100 minutes.
Thank
It's
you.
Like, I don't,
As a
I don't
theater owner,
care.
I appreciate it.
And actually, I'm cheating a little because we're 103 or something with credits. So I just don't understand. People, I see it. I sit in the theater and watch them. It's like they're ready for it to end at 80 minutes or whatever. So as you go through that process, the question is, how Liza became Liza. Now, her connection, which is very strong, very personal, and very powerful with the LGBTQ community, is less a matter of how Liza became Liza as how she like what she's known for and what some of her accomplishments. That's kind of a non-performance accomplishment. So it was unfortunate that we do have a couple of clips of her singing in Central Park with the big Stonewall sign behind her, and also her talking at the UN. But we weren't able to probe that as deeply as we would like to. And it goes back to what I said before, which is we could have made 50 different, Liza films. Having said that, I'm really pleased. I mean, we premiered the film at Tribeca, but then we went to Provincetown and Key West.
Oh,
and,
wow.
The New Fest, the LGBTQ festival in New York. The emotion, the stunned emotion of those audiences when they watched it, and not because of the film, because of Liza and that connection. They feel they own her, and not that they own her. Own is a bad word, but they feel that she is them. She understands them, and this whole idea that she what didn't look like a movie star, had an odd look, and was a little bit of an outsider, even though she was an insider. And of course, the tradition and connection to Judy Garland, it's undeniable, and it's a very emotional experience.
Yeah. Well, Kino Lorber does a great job with physical media and bonus content. So not that I want to, keep anybody from seeing the film in the movie theater, because they should, but you buy the DVD too.
Yeah, because maybe you can
hopefully you can put that in the bonus content.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, we have at least 4 or 5 scenes, including that one that we would put in the bonus content, for sure.
At what point in the process did you start showing her the footage or the film, and and how involved was she, I guess, with that?
At the end. Yeah. She really trusted us, and that's the only way to do something like this. The last thing
it's not the only way, unfortunately. As you know, there's plenty of documentaries, especially now, that
yeah, and it's tough, because on the one hand, you as a filmmaker want access to these amazing, extraordinary people with very unique DNA. You want access to them. On the other side is, they have extraordinary, unique DNA. They are very famous. They are very successful. And most of them are there because they have controlled the way that they've been perceived. So that push-pull is a very, very common thing. I mean, I did a film on the rock performer Meatloaf, and oh my God, I literally fought him the entire way. No, you can't film this. You can't film that. You can't film this. And obviously it's part of the film, but that's the natural vibe. Liza was kind of the opposite, which was great. And so yeah, she saw the cuts of it, the early kind of cuts, and I think the vibe that I got is that she was very, very pleased that we made the decision to tell her story through the point of view of the mentors who made her who she is. Because again, she's really incredibly humble about that. It's like, yeah, they made me. Fred Ebb invented me. Okay. I didn't walk on the stage and say one word that Fred Ebb, the lyricist of the Cantor and Ebb team, that I didn't say anything that Fred Ebb didn't write and craft with me to kind of express a moment, whether it be comedy or drama or whatever it might be. So she was very, very unusual. very unusual.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's great that she could see it and watch it, and then also probably reflect back on her life and the journey. The journey is it's an epic journey, and again, you tell it sort of from the inside, so it doesn't feel like a kind of a photo album. It really, you go into the struggles, and you see her try and sort of make sense of things and then sort of find her way. And that, again, it just makes it personal, and it sort of jives so perfectly with who she is, which again is it's not perfect and glossy. It's got quirks.
Well, we're all a mess, but
right. But she puts that out.
How do we make ourselves less of a mess? And yeah, there's some really great stuff in here. It's just absolutely, it's inspiring.
I love what you said about it being a movie for not just Liza fans, but
Well, look, I mean, I'm Bruce, like you. I mean, I only became aware I'm of an age where it's, Arthur was my introduction to Liza Minnelli, and I guess I come from a movie-going family, so I sort of knew that cabaret existed, but certainly not a movie that I saw when it first came out, and frankly, not one that I unfortunately haven't caught up with. But, I did not, everything post-Arthur is kind of tabloid Liza for me. And so to come to this film and to see, this incredible talent, the sensation that it created, was really eye-opening. And then again, but not just that, but how does it happen? That's what makes it truly special.
And it's clear when you see how it happened, it actually makes a lot of sense, and you get it. And Liza also, she's interested in things and people from a different angle. So, the example was, we have that moment in the film about Studio 54, and, as much as anyone, if not anyone, she, Halston, and maybe Andy Warhol and Bianca Jagger, I mean, they made Studio 54. When you think of Studio 54, when you see the photos, they're right there with Steve Rubell and everything like that. And yet, she doesn't want to, even though how honest she is, she's not interested in talking about, oh, yeah, we would go in the basement. Yeah, everybody,
did this
blow and blow jobs and all this kind of stuff. That doesn't interest her, as Michael Feinstein says. The really interesting thing of Studio 54 for her was that it was a cultural place and a state of mind. And if you look at the photos from that era, you see Liza with Martha Graham, Liza with Truman Capote, Liza with, that's what interested her. And so you could see, I mean, for all these decades being asked, oh, give me the gossip, how, what kind of drugs did everyone do, and blah, blah, blah. It's just like not.
I don't know what drugs. I was sitting with Henry Kissinger talking about.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, they ask, she can't explain why, what, when. She can't explain the details of what happened in the debauchery in the basement or whatever it might be, but she knows that she learned a lot about herself at Studio 54 and met a lot of really interesting, creative people. And she always surrounded herself with really creative, interesting people. I mean, we touch on her 2-week engagement to Peter Sellers.
Yes, I had no idea. That was fantastic.
She was with Baryshnikov, and then she was with, I mean, my God, Martin Scorsese. I mean, she fed off of these people's energy and artistic genius, and in a way that really I think few do, because many come in to being a celebrity with, this is who I am, I'm this, and I think it's rarer to see. It's like Taylor Swift. She was born, I mean, you look online at footage of her when she's 7 singing. That's Taylor Swift. She knew who she was.
Right.
Liza didn't necessarily know who she was. And her mother dies, and she's been told, you have these expectations. She's born on third base. And what does she do? And I guess, that's the story of the film.
I want to say about that saying, I mean, the thing is the saying is, you're born on third base and you think you hit a triple. So that's the complete saying. It's like, no, you didn't hit a triple. You were born on third base. She knew she was born on third base. And I think, but she never thought that she got there because she hit a triple.
And I'll go even further to say she was absolutely born on third base. Okay. But in many ways, and I know, the word privilege is much discussed and bandied around these days.
Yeah.
In a strange way, her getting from third base to home was as hard as us getting around all four bases,
right,
because she started with the expectation of, okay, well, if she's anything less than Judy Garland, okay, the greatest performer of the 20th century, or certainly top three. And if she's anything less than the visual and design acuity of her brilliant father, one of the top 5, 10, if not 5 directors of the 20th century, then she's a failure. I mean, to live with that, I mean, that's tough. So that's a tough 90 feet to get from third base to home.
Yeah. That's totally right. And that's not tough. That's like literally a direct line to your drug dealer to kind of try and sort of deal with the pain. Because, crushing, it's an impossible thing to live up to. And yet she found her way out of that. That's what you're saying. It's such a cool thing. So let me ask you this, just as a filmmaker, you obviously are doing a theatrical run. I'm certain that you could have, I'm sure you'll have a streaming run after this, but how did you decide to kind of commit to a theatrical run? Why is that important to you?
Well, first of all, I'm old-fashioned. Movies should be seen on the big screen, even a documentary, whatever. I don't care. A movie should be seen in a theater with an audience. So you always try to do that. I think in Liza's case, because of who she is and the impassioned affinity audience she has that just love her, I think it was pretty obvious that we wanted to. I think these days the theatrical run, certainly true for documentaries, and I think it's also true, for films in terms of that long tail. What's going to happen to Liza when it goes on streaming and SVOD or transactional VOD or here? What happens in that long tail? A lot of that is determined, especially for a documentary, on how well it does theatrically, and all of that. Because theatrical is a horrific business, as we all know, except if you're doing, billion-dollar movies. It's a very, very tough business, but it is in some ways a loss leader to be able to help promote and raise and elevate the film for its afterlife. And I think, I think it deserves to be in theaters. I think Zeitgeist and Kino Lorber is doing a great job setting it up. They're really, really good at special interest titles. So I think that's great. And I also think that, if you're sitting there, after a bunch of months, and you have a choice and it comes up, you could rent it for $3.99 or buy it for $19.99. I think in that moment that you're ready to hit, yes, I'll buy it. I think if it's a theatrical, it just feels like, I'm getting my money's worth a little better than if it didn't have a theatrical and the first time you're seeing it is on a transactional site. So anyway, that's my theory of the business for right now.
Well, I do want to give a shout out to Zeitgeist Films, one of my, favorite team of pair of, people in the business, Emily Russo and Nancy Gersman.
They're so smart.
And they're just so smart and so intelligent and have such great taste. I don't know. I'm not going to say that they designed the poster, but the poster is absolutely stunning. And we'll put an image of it over as I'm saying this. But let's take a look at the trailer for the film as well, because it's a terrific trailer and hopefully something that's going to inspire people. And
gather around, I got a story to tell.
Tonys, a Grammy, an Emmy, even an Oscar. She has done it all.
She has achieved that rare status where only a first name is necessary.
One and only Liza.
Gotcha! You thought I didn't see you now, didn't you?
Born to Hollywood royalty.
Liza Minnelli.
Superstar Judy Garland.
I thought, Mama, she's never gonna pass.
Her fight was to find who she was. She didn't want to be a mother.
Her mother's passing was a catalyst.
A period of incubation.
She found friends and mentors who helped her.
He gave her an entire sense of self.
There was so much expected of her.
She had the thing that you can't teach.
She blossomed.
Everybody wanted to be with Liza. Everybody wanted her at their parties.
She's hot, she's sexy, she's weird, and she had that fierceness and so much vulnerability.
How you doing?
Terrific. Fine. I feel wonderful about love.
Excuse me.
Because I wanted it to be like it was in the songs.
That last husband of hers, I was at the wedding. Oh my God.
Legendary actress and singer Liza Minnelli has checked into rehab.
I was very worried.
How lucky I was to have gone through all of the bad stuff that I've gone through, because it prepared me for the rest of my life.
If the public sees Liza as a barrel of sequins and glamour, they've got her wrong.
She wanted to consume the fullness of life. I don't think she has any regrets.
It's great. It's a great trailer.
Yeah.
It really captures the movie. It's just wonderful.
I think it does.
Yeah, well done, Bruce.
That's
great.
Thank you.
Trailers are tough, and so you, you
don't want to tell too much. You want to, but
we had enough trouble getting the movie down to 103 minutes, let alone
get the trailer under 2.
90 seconds.
2 minutes, under 2. Yeah, it's crazy. and we even have a shorter one for those with no patience. For I think it's 30 seconds.
Yes, you need cut downs for
the goldfish, right?
No, for Instagram, for social.
Right.
Yeah, it's well, whatever. But you know what? And just looking at the trailer, it reminded me Darren Criss.
Yeah.
Who it's so wonderful that there's a young person in the film.
Yeah.
Well, more importantly, that young person knows her.
Right.
And
yes.
it's a friend of ours. Yeah. And that was a very, very important thing when we, kind of reached out to book contributors, on-camera contributors, and that, I really drew the line. You have to know her. Either we had a couple of, as you know, experts, like Fosse experts, like more academic analysis.
Well, they're not talking about her. They're talking about Fosse. Yeah,
exactly. But everybody in the film knows her, has spent time with her. I mean, everyone from the Lazars, who have been friends with her for 50 years, to Mia Farrow, who, as she says, knows her longer.
Yeah,
they were in preschool together.
Preschool, unbelievable. I was also, I knew you have it in the trailer, but I was so moving, that moment where you hand the iPad to Ben Vereen and show him that footage. Wow, you just get the whole, without saying anything, you get all of it. You get how he cared, what that love relationship was about. There's that photograph, of course, but it's like you just pulled back a curtain. It was so skillfully done on your part as a director to kind of really have that and kind of lay it on him, as it were, on camera. I thought that was brilliant.
Thank you. No, it's interesting. That was an important moment because we wanted to reveal the resonance of Liza's relationships over many, many years. Michael talks about in it how Peter Allen who, they divorced in, the early 70s or whatever. They were very, very, very close friends until the day that he died. And so I think those lifelong relationships, certainly, with Chita Rivera goes back to the 70s, Mia goes back to the 60s. The 40s or the 50s with Mia. So it is incredible. Her very, very close friends, and Michael, of course.
Who speaks so well, and he's just he's such a historian, music historian, as well as also having the ability to sort of create context. You get to see it so three-dimensionally as he frames it. He's just
a walking encyclopedia.
He's really incredible. Yeah. He's also. I just saw him at Carnegie Hall not long ago, and again, he's just what a performer he is as well. So he's just really something.
Yeah, and he cares so much about the Great American Songbook.
Yes.
Preserving it, and the level of knowledge is just insane, and also the level of artifacts, like in his house. I mean, you could literally charge admission tomorrow to go into his house and see, he has all these letters from like Louis B. Mayer to George Gershwin and the stories behind them, just really, really incredible. And it was great. It was great having him. We were very lucky with this film to have him, to have the footage, to have my two, compatriots in Dana Craig and Alex Goldstein, our producer and co-producer. And just some projects are meant to be, and they come together with a little bit of magic. And I like to think that, the Liza magic kind of permeated a lot of the stuff that we did.
It definitely feels like magic. You definitely captured magic in a bottle, and it's just a wonderful film.
You talked about a list of names. Anything you want to share, or any upcoming another project in the works, next film?
We're working on a couple of interesting films right now. One is based on a personality driven that we can't reveal just yet. The other one is based on a very interesting best-selling book called Gangsters versus Nazis. And it's about how Jewish gangsters during World War II battled members of the German-American Bund, American Nazis during the war.
Wow.
And
That's
it's
cool.
a real story. We're actually financing the film independently now. We're in production with it, and it's been very different from Liza.
It's great. Well, so the film opens when?
I think we're opening January 20 in New York?
We're opening the 24th, January 24th in New York. I think it starts at IFC Center. Then it moves to on the 31st of January to LA. I think we're going to be in Encino and
here at the Royal.
And here at the Royal. Yeah. There at the Royal. Yeah. And then the next week it will expand nationally. So hopefully we will prove the fact that what one of my good friends who's a theatrical distributor always tells me, the greats are great for a reason. And you don't always know exactly why, but you know it when you see it. And I think Liza fits into that category, and we're hoping that she brings people to get fannies and seats, because I think hearing it in the surround sound, her music, her singing, also just hearing her talk and especially the stuff from the 70s, all the gritty kind of Paris and Copenhagen stuff.
Yeah.
Really, you got to see it in the theater. So we're hoping the Liza Army comes to support it.
Now, will you be in New York and in LA for Q&A on opening weekend?
That is currently the plan.
That's
with a few stops along the way at some other screenings and stuff.
Right.
But yes.
Hopefully some special guests can join you.
Hopefully, we never know.
Yeah.
Right. Well, check your local listings. Well, actually, go to Zeitgeist Films for information.
We also have a website, LizaDocFilm.com. LizaDocFilm.com, that will post also information
where it's
and the Zeitgeist site as well. So
Fantastic.
Terrific.
Well, Bruce, thank you so much for talking to us. It's such a wonderful
Thank you
film.
for watching the movie and getting it and loving Liza.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, great work.
It's terrific. Liza, absolutely terrific. No, I got it.
Okay,
Liza, a totally terrific, absolutely true story.
Close. A truly terrific.
Truly terrific. Oh my God. Truly, I got it. That's right. It's the alliterative. Liza, a truly terrific, absolutely true story.
Hopefully when people see the poster, it all connects and you never forget the title because...
Yeah, well, Liza sings out, so I think that will win the day for sure.
Do we need to re-record it? I
love that. I love that. It's great.
She says it in the film.
Yes.
Also,
No, it's a song. Well,
so,
I need the soundtrack now because
it'll be a household name before we know it.
A truly terrific, absolutely true story.
Bruce David Klein, thank you for joining us inside the Art House.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Really,
thank you everybody for watching.
Very enjoyable. Take care.
Inside the Art House was produced by Miles McCreary, Thomas Cassetta, and Raphael Sparge. And our on-site producer is Norrin Dickerson and filmed at the Laemmle Royal Theatre. The episode was edited by Gabriel Laemmle. Show open edited by Rick Pratt. Music by Isabel Engman and Gerardo Garcia Jr. Graphics by Janet DeAngelis. Marketing by Stephanie Peters and Matthew King. Find out more at InsideTheArthouse.com.